One of I heard something today on the radio. Again, in the set of rooms that I was in, um, there were people in power that were that wasn't supposed to have to be. So pointing things out, from my end, this is like, I don't know, serious breakdown in communication and other things. Perhaps feels more like an ER in a trauma room scenario at times. Um, so if I'm an RN, I mean, like, again, there's a TV show ER. Like, they were on point. You walked into that trauma room, they had, boom, doctors on you, fixed you like that. Everyone usually survived. I mean, it set an expectation of what to expect at the ER. Although I've been in New York ERs before, and as of late, it's not like it is on TV. In all seriousness. So I was listening as I was going to the physical therapist today. I don't like arguments. I don't like really heated debates. I It gives me high amounts of anxiety. I've been stalked, hunted, and harmed way too much in this life to actually want to go at someone or toe to toe and confront someone ever. So I don't ever take that stance. Um, and so I was listening, and I don't like sometimes when there's these really like I mean, like, I've seen it a lot in New York. It makes my stomach knot, where it's like in like this Black History Month, and these civil rights leaders come out, and like, my whole thing is my whole thing is that before you even begin about civil rights, and what about human liberties and my father's civil rights, because he's a whatever, and my grandfather had permission to be here. Like, he had to ask to come over. They did things very differently then, and he had all of the correct whatevers. So between my grandfather and my father's generation, and then into my own, how have my rights been? I mean, it's like, I wouldn't even know how to pursue it. But anyway, so I'm listening to this man who was not angry. He was just speaking very monotone facts, no opinions, no judgments, no trying to skew it one way or the other. He was just like almost a college lecture without debate or whatever. Just in the late 1800s, there was something called black codes. Now, he went over what a black code was, and I'm sitting here sitting in the car. I wanted to tape it, but I was driving and I couldn't pull over. And he was on a radio station called Justice on the FM dial as I was scanning through. I think it may have been WBAI. So I'm listening to it, and I'm listening to him very calmly go over these facts. And then I'm thinking to myself, in a modern day and age, being in a major metropolitan city and knowing what the current immigration of busloads, and somebody's claim that we're a sanctuary city and that we're a democratic state, and I not knowing if these are, I'm like, are these real truths? Like, how do I verify that? And then they're saying that there were black codes on the books, but they're not enforcing them. I'm like, why? It seems like a way to manage a major metropolitan city. How do you pay the tax man? I mean, like, otherwise it's vagrancy. The thing is that it's just said that they had to be in some employment contract. Okay. I mean, I'm seeing busloads of people get here and they expect at the end of that trip that they're somehow going to hook up with some ICE service or immigration service that's going to give them food, shelter, and work. So I'm a little confused where the argument comes in with all of these like other, it almost feels like campaigners. I'm like, how do you, I mean, like, there's grandsire responsibility and there's a family network somewhere and there's managers that have to keep themselves and their families safe but still live and try to work within the constructs of whatever is laying the foundations and the rules. So I'm a little confused. It also said that education, they were barred from education. Well, in listening to this, I'm thinking to myself, so they were making it inhospitable. Like if you're coming to work, and that's what will be provided, and it has to be contracted. It has to be handed in a year ahead of time because there is zoning, planning, and national security that has to be taken into account. So this way, the city is run at an optimal peak performance with minimal serious crimes. I'm not sure how they're evading those levels of simplistic, non inflammatory requirements, like not requests. And then if there's not employable, if they're not employable or they're not able to meet that level, then there's some vacate and then they're moved to somewhere else. I'm really having a hard time with this new news story of over 2 million, and this is just the front story of what they're allowing me to know. 2 million from, they questioned Joe Biden on it, or President Joe Biden, excuse me. Um, and they said it has nothing to do with Mexico. He said it wasn't Mexico. It's going on his watch is Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba. And I'm like, right. So, how is this working with collecting taxes and making sure people stay nationally secure and that they have enough food to eat, shelter? And I mean, I'm in a fallout shelter, that's what's posted. They put up brand new flags for me. I used to only have one on either side of the train station. Now they added an Excelsior and another borough, Queen and borough with a crown on it flag um, for the local management. I noticed I was inside, and the United States of America flag sits top, and then there's the Excelsior. So I was in the Marie Curie Park, which is radiological, whoever discovered radiological effects of plutonium and a lot of other different whatever. Um, and in that particular park, which I know where I was in my NAR, MLS, GRI career when I sat at the table and the park property was whatever. Um, I'm in Marie Curie Park today, different park, and there's the United States of America flag sitting up top. There was a orange, white, and blue city flag. I've seen Mayor Adams fly, but I have no idea what borough that represents. But it's not Queens. And then there's a New York City Parks, Parks flag, which is whatever and whatever. Now, the two flags that still are remaining on the flagpole have been up for a while. The United States of America flag looks like it is only a few days from, like, it's been blown in the wind so much where it is on the pole that it looks like it's going to fall off. The park's flag is tethered and frayed at the edge as well. And this watches over the children as they play, and the playground that they're playing in is named after Marie Curie. And it has this planetary solar system and radiological undertone etched into the metal and the artwork in this particular park. So that concerns me, because that seems to be a very important topic, and it just, if the flag is indicative or a sign of some argument that is ongoing but never seems to be resolved, the flags that they're flying at the moment in this area show the wear and tear, let's just put it that way. Right by the train station, however, it seems like somebody's doing something. And my father said that I brought it up at the dinner table, asked if he had seen it on his walk. He said that Greg, which is Bayside Live TV, he recorded it. So I said, good. I said, at least then you know.
The battle over immigration tonight, and a new number, a record high, more than 2 million apprehensions at the southern border in just the last year. Tonight, our Rachel Scott asking President Biden, why is the border more overwhelmed under your watch? How the president answers. And the Texas sheriff now launching a criminal investigation tonight over the plane of migrants from Texas that Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis sent to Martha's Vineyard. Here's Rachel.
Tonight, the Biden administration pressed to explain the historic surge of migrants arrested at the southern border. More than 2 million apprehensions in just 1 year, the largest number ever. The president telling me the U.S. is seeing an increase in people fleeing political oppression. On the border, why is the border more overwhelmed under your watch, Mr. President?
There are fewer immigrants coming from Central America and from Mexico. This is a totally different circumstance. What's on my watch now is Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua.
The administration says the migrants are escaping failing communist regime.
What's on his watch? Watch. Why are they coming into the area where the hands of time are? That's what I don't understand.
And sending them back there is not an option. The president insists he's working with other countries to stop the flow. But border cities like El Paso, Texas are overwhelmed. Shelters at capacity, people sleeping on the streets. El Paso now busing migrants up north. With just under 50 days to go until the midterms, Republican governors sensing a political opportunity. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis flew nearly 50 migrants from San Antonio to the liberal enclave of Martha's Vineyard, making sure cameras were there to capture the scene.
They were provided an ability to be in the most posh sanctuary jurisdiction maybe in the world.
But now a Texas sheriff launching a criminal investigation.
48 migrants were lured, I will use the word lured, under false pretenses into staying at a hotel for a couple of days. They were promised work, they were promised the solution to several of their problems, and then they were unceremoniously stranded in Martha's Vineyard.
ABC's Miles Cohen catching up with DeSantis today.
How would you respond to the sheriff in Texas who's saying that these migrants were lured under false pretenses to boarding those planes?
Democrats accuse DeSantis of turning desperate people into political pawns, but the Florida governor is defiant, promising more of those flights in the days to come.
All right, let's get right to Rachel Scott live at the White House tonight. Rachel, Governor DeSantis also facing some questions tonight about the taxpayer money used to fly those migrants from Texas, not even his own state of Florida, to Martha's Vineyard.
Yes, David, Florida Republicans redirected about $12 million in federal COVID relief funds to pay for those migrant flights. And despite legal challenges, Governor Ron DeSantis is vowing to use every penny of that, David.
Rachel Scott on that part of the story and asking the president today about immigration in this country. Rachel, our thanks to you on both fronts. We're going to turn.
So now, knowing that the flag is patterned in this way, that's my flag that I have at home. What I'm confused about is, like, the sports people, they always talk about their contracts. They're contracted to the sports leagues. They expect that, I would assume, that if, like, they're not on 1-year contracts, I think I've heard several years mentioned. So black codes work for that, even though they might not call them that. That's what the man on the radio today was calling it in some language that's non-inflammatory. He was just speaking about their existence at some point in history. I never learned in school in New York about black codes or that they ever ended. And it seems like there is this sharp retraction of things I've needed to know while living here, but yet the enhancement of those that have pursued black studies, and they've gone on to these illustrious careers and things, and they've almost, like, inflated some movement, but that movement is, like, contrary to how big city management, I mean, like, it cuts down crime when people are working. They're in work. They're usually too tired when they come home to think of more crime. And again, it's just like an evolutionary cycle, and I guess that goes into the unions and things, but there's challenges there too, I'm sure, if I think about it. But for the most part, it's just a standard of whatever. I don't understand how they're taking on migrants from elsewhere and how they couldn't have some code of conduct expected, especially considering that these are, I mean, like, then there's the migration from places that we have diplomatic ties. Italy was one of them. Ireland was another. There was the Big Five I've mentioned before, which is what came home in the history book within my living history, or my ancestors, my direct ancestors' living history. And then how, I mean, like, to protect oneself, how would I even know who is an approved diplomatic relationship? I mean, I looked at the UN today because they're having this General Assembly, and there's a lot of flags. I don't even know what countries they represent, but yet they're assembling here in New York. And I've never been asked. Once I went for a job interview there. They didn't hire me. However that works. but yet they still assemble with very little known about what they talk about. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxies broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.